Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Digital to Dice podcast. I am Dave.
I'm Ron.
And Ron, we got episode 152 today.
Yes. I don't have anything for that. I'm still all liquored up from the last time that we did the show.
Yeah, you've been on a drinking binge all weekend from what I saw.
Oh, my God. Well, you know, visit from a parent and isn't that what's supposed to happen?
You're supposed to get drunk with mom, I thought, right?
Yeah. It was nice, because the last time, I get along quite well with my mom. The last time that, she came over, she had the drink and the wife had a drink and I didn't feel all that well. So I did the iced tea, which again is okay. But it's like, no, after the weekend Sarah and I had, mom came over. It's like, oh yeah, I'm getting one.
Nice. It reminds me of a mom joke. I saw a truck. It was a big dump truck. It was sitting in front of me in traffic and had a sign that said, "This vehicle makes frequent stops." And then in small letters, "At your mom's." I was like, all right, so I had to take a picture of that. I got a little chuckle out of that.
My mom's 70. I don't ever want to think about that.
Yeah. But anyway, ways to get a hold of us, digitaltodice.com. That is our website. 978-751-DICE is the dice line. Send us a text. digitaltodice@yahoo.com is the email, and over on Facebook, facebook.com/groups/digitaltodice. Oh, and if you want to be a Patreon, we have a couple new Patreon supporters this week. I want to thank you so much. Patreon.com/digitaltodice. If you'd like to support us for either $2 or $5 a month and just help keep the show going here, would be appreciated. We thank everybody that has signed up so far and helps us pay the bills over here. Thank you so much. Anyway, what do you want to talk about today, Ron?
Playoffs.
All right.
Playoffs.
So we're going to talk some playoffs here. As Ron's
not
in
applicable if you are a Las Vegas Raider fan right now.
Oh, there's some bad teams out.
They're the only 0-3 team.
Oh, really?
Yeah, everyone else has won a game except for the Raiders.
Oh, wow. Interesting.
Who were a playoff team last year.
So, anyway, we'll have some playoff talk here, but we're not going to have much Raider talk here on the show, I would imagine. Anyway, so
we're not going to talk about 11-10 either. So have you ever heard of a football game? Because that was the Sunday night game as we're taping this Monday, so it would have been last night's game from when we're taping this. A football game that ended 11-10.
I don't remember one. No, that is a very, very odd score to get.
I looked it up when I woke up this morning because I didn't watch any of the game last night, and I saw the score, and I think the Broncos who had the Rockies beat the Giants 11-10, and I think it was a safety in the third quarter and a touchdown or a field goal in the fourth, so they got 5 points and a half.
Yeah, it would have to be some sort of a safety in there,
Maybe in Canada where the rules are different.
Oh yeah, well that's you can get the
point on a punt or missed extra point or field goal, but 11-10.
That is nuts. Let me see. So, hey, let me play the music. Let's get to what we're playing.
Okay.
Let me see. I'll go first because mine's going to be real short. I haven't done
movie script reader.
I haven't done much. Yeah, I'll talk about that real quick. I got a job reading movie scripts on YouTube. It was I watch all these.
They're movie. It's not
short movies. They're short movies. The short movies. So what it is I watch a whole bunch of channels on YouTube, and they do they recap a movie in 8 to 10 minutes. Now there's spoilers, so I mean you're gonna get what happens in the movie, but it's just kind of fun because there's a lot of movies, especially you don't get Star Wars or Jaws or anything like that. They're always like the lower level movies, but they're interesting to see. It's like, oh, here's a movie here about this, and I'll watch 8 to 10 minutes and have an idea what happened, and then I'll be like, that's something I might want to watch. I'll make a little note. In fact, we did that last night. We watched one of them last night that I saw the recap from. So anyway, there was one that I was watching, and they put out something that says, hey, we're looking for a new narrator. And so I sent them in a sample, and they says, okay, here's your first script, and I read it, and it says, okay, sounds pretty good. And so they said, can you do 7 to 10 a week? I'm like, holy crap. They take about an hour a piece, I mean, to get it, you got to be perfect. You can't stumble at all. You got to have the narration exactly perfect every time. So I'll give it a try. So I'm trying it out here. I'm in my second week doing the stuff here, but it's been fun. It's been fun reading the scripts. I send one over and I read it, and then it's really fun to see them edit it all together with the movie parts with my voice behind it. It's really kind of fun to see that.
Nice.
It's called Movie Shortens, by the way. Movie Shortens, Shortens. Movie Shortens. I put one of the videos on the Digital Dice Facebook group in case anybody wanted to check it out. And there was another one's called Next Shot. NEXSHOT, and they're trying to get that new channel going, and that's a fun one. They do a kill count, so when somebody dies, you make a big deal about it. So I go into my broadcaster voice, and she is stabbed for all to see. That is kill number 3. So I really get into that a little bit, with my broadcaster voice. I
remember one time counting the times that the coyote was killed in the Roadrunner cartoon.
Oh, jeebus.
And it came, since it was a 7-minute short, it came out to be about 1 a minute.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah, they don't. I thought they were going to do like these big action movies where there was like 40 or 50 or 70 of them, but it's only been 5, 6, or 7. But they did a really good movie called Jack in the Box, and there's 2 Jack in the Box movies. So I've submitted the script for both of those for their 10-minute clip, and we ended up watching it last night. It says, hey, I just submitted this. I says, I want to watch the movie. It was really good. It was about a Jack in the Box and a guy found, and I guess they used to put trap demons in the Jack in the Box, and whoever wakes up the Jack in the Box, they come out and kill 6 people. It was really a neat little movie. I really enjoyed it. So I've been doing mostly that. That's really been tying into a lot of my time. But I did sneak in along with some more Stone Cold hockey, which I'm really enjoying. In fact, I went down to Staples this morning and I printed out a bunch of score sheets so I can have a whole bunch on hand and start playing out. I probably do some playoff series, and maybe I'll do one team, like a full one-team play through an entire season. I'm not sure what season I would do yet, but I have the printed cards for 74 and 83. And then I think I got PDFs for 90. So those are my 3 big seasons anyway. Those are the ones I really want to play.
There you go.
So I got to pick out which one I want to do as far as which playoffs or whatever. But I printed a bunch of score sheets today for that. So I've been playing some of that. And the new Strat PC hockey come out last week. And I forgot I got that because I know I ordered the cards. My cards haven't come in yet. But I ordered I ordered the cards for the international set, and then I ordered 72, 73 so I could play the Team Canada and Team Russia against the NHL teams. I know a lot of them would be a slaughter, but I thought it'd be fun to see where if I start at the bottom and work my way up to see when they start losing, because obviously they're going to crush the bottom teams in 72, 73. But I imagine at some point when they start playing the medium teams and then the better teams, we might have some good games. So I'm kind of interested. That was
Montreal and Chicago in the final, right?
Oh, I think it was a rematch of that. Yeah, it was.
Yeah, the rematch of 71.
Yep. So I'd be interested to see, when they start playing Chicago, Montreal, how they fare. If they sweep them all or whatever. So I ordered that. But remember when their website went down and they offered a 10% off everything day?
Yeah, I grabbed 3 computers.
Yeah, I grabbed a couple of baseball seasons, and then I grabbed the hockey game with the international team. So I don't remember buying the PC game, but then when I looked at my my account, I was like, oh yeah, I did buy it because they had the 10% off. So because I was going to wait to buy it, but at 10% off, I will take that.
I'll probably get it next week. I didn't pick it up in a sale. I spent enough on the seasons, and so
I got it in. I set it up. Yeah. There's not much different. I mean, it looks pretty much the same. They've added a ton of features. But a lot of the features are reports. Like, the goalies have more stats now to look at. It keeps track of a few more things. I think
the save percentage and such. And I think the player reports are pretty improved as well.
Yeah, so you get a lot of that. The gameplay is the same. The setup is pretty close. Although I think now it sorts the 6th man coming out by regular season goals, I think.
Yes.
And then, it does a little bit more.
When you're pulling the goalie.
Yeah, so it fixes that. It fixed the thing where if you put the man out there that was already on the ice, it caused a problem. So they tidied up a few things. They did something with the shootout as well, which I never played the shootout anyway. So
they redid the utility, which is something that
yes, the Strat utility. There's a brand new utility, really close to the old one though. This is called version 3, and I have version 2, and I use that when I play Cards and Dice. It looks a little different. It's pretty much the same, but it's a tad different looking. It does a few more things. Oh, you can choose between 30 and 35 cards now.
I was about to say, you could actually play the game
with
the 35 cards per period.
Yep. It still won't sync up with the PC game, which is too bad. I would
I
really
don't think that's something they ever want to do. I think just reading between the lines, I think it was probably talked about, and someone said.
But how cool would that be if you were playing the PC game and then you said, I want to play this game, Cards and Dice. You play it in utility and then upload that to the PC game.
Yeah, because in the baseball game you can manually roll the dice. In the football game you can manually roll the dice, but you can't in the hockey.
Or even if you could import from the PC game into the utility. Just any way to combine Cards and Dice and PCs would be really, really fun to do. But it added a few little things in there. So I haven't had much time to kick around it and play with it yet. But so I'm hoping to do that this week. I've just been busy because the junior hockey started again, so I'm behind the microphone at the rinks. In fact, I'm behind the microphone 5 times this week, so that's why this show is late, because I was working at the rink all weekend. So I haven't really played much except for the couple of hockey games I talked about there, and but like I said, just been just a busy week for me behind the microphone with a new job with the YouTube movie scripts and then the junior hockey side. Everything happens at once, Chuck, and I go all summer long with nothing, and now, boom, September,
Here you go.
I'm slammed at the end of September. So what have you been playing?
At least it's not 95 degrees.
Oh, yes, that is nice. That is nice.
What have I been doing? Well, I've reached the playoffs of my 85 baseball replay, which is the impetus of why we're doing the show. And so we are actually today, I do my first game 6 between the Angels and the Blue Jays, because the Angels beat out the Royals and the Blue Jays have a 3-0 lead. And the Blue Jays have given up games 4 and 5 in Anaheim. So that series has gone 6, and the Cardinals and the Dodgers have gone 6, and games 6 and 7 are coming up in Los Angeles. So finishing up that, and that's the main thing. And those are, we'll talk about that when we get to the topic at hand. But because of how I do my streams, I make a PowerPoint slides for the lineup. So it's much more of a television presentation than anything, because the graphics and action, it's not, there's some, but it's not meant to be a special television.
I love the slides because it really gives you that feel from the, late 70s, early 80s, this week in baseball feel. Like, here's our starting lineup.
If we ever do a modern season, it's the same font. I found one, and that is the mid-80s NBC font.
Oh, yeah. Okay. That's why it looks familiar.
And I love it. I will use it for any project. I don't care if we're doing the 1899 Spiders or.
Did you have to download that?
I looked for that for years, and not knowing how fonts are labeled, I just did 80s NBC Sports font, and nothing came up. And the YouTube channel LGR, Lazy Game Reviews.
Okay.
Which is nothing but he hasn't done a game review in forever.
He's pretty lazy then.
Oh no, he's great. He actually publishes a video a week. It's on computer hardware and software, and it's a channel that I've watched grown by leaps and bounds, kind of like this one. And he started using that font, and I almost emailed him and go, come on, I know that font. That's, it's Scully, Garagiola, Enberg, and Olsen for football. What is it? And it's called Kabel Black, KABEL Black. Okay. And it's a German font. And those machines didn't have a lot of memory back then, so you could load up. I think NBC used 2. They used that, and they used Arial. Yeah. And you can turn it into italics and bold and all that. So those are the ones that I use. And so when I do the lineups, I'll post the lineups and make them in the game, and then I do that, and then attach the in-game picture, which always looks blurry there. And D. Scott Howard has done a very good job sending me players that had been traded over the course of the years. So if you're watching at the Angels and Blue Jays, when John Candelaria pitched, he had the Pirates picture, but when you get the Dodgers players for all that. And so it's very cool. It takes a long time to do, even going from one game to the next, but it just kind of gives it. You want your playoff to have a big game feel.
You want to be special. You want to be special. And it's fun. And so, yeah. And so as the poor Cardinals, poor Dodgers, they had their heart broken in Game 5 of that series in St. Louis. 10th inning, runner on first, he goes to second, and the computer fails to walk Jack Clark with the pitcher on deck, because we did a double switch and the pitcher was in the 5 hole. And what's Jack Clark do?
homers down the left field line to win the ball game 5-3.
Oh, very nice.
And so the Cardinals have 2 cracks at the pennant. So that's my primary focus. And between doing the slides and getting things ready, those are high pressure games. It's not just, all right, where's the computer say we should go here? And do those. It's a topic of conversation, and we'll talk about it in a few minutes. But so it's a half hour of prep work followed by an hour game, and so those are more productions than anything. They're fun, and it gets people buzzing and all that. What if I played anything else besides that and gems? That's pretty much all I can talk about.
Okay. All right. So should we get to the topic of the day?
Yes.
Here we go. All right. So playoffs.
Yes.
Lead us in. What do you want to talk about here?
All right. Well, there's 2 different ways to approach it.
Okay.
You can just do a couple projects like you've done and just simulate a postseason.
Whoa.
I wasn't trying to be. I wasn't trying to be a snot.
Are you sure you weren't trying to be a snot?
Yes.
Okay. I'm just kidding.
Because that's the the playoffs are always the part of the season that we remember most.
Right. Yeah.
If you hit a walk off in a game in July, unless you were there, chances are you're not going to remember it. But if let's say you give up the game tying touchdown with 13 seconds to go, they will always remember it in Buffalo and there. So
yeah, it's always the end of the game stuff you remember. Whether it's football or hockey, if there's a penalty or a flag, it's always like, oh, the ref cost us the ref cost us the game. It's like, well, you didn't say that back in the first quarter when they threw the flag, but everything comes down to the final couple of minutes of the game, and anything that happens is magnified by 100.
Oh, by 1,000.
Yeah.
By 1,000. Everyone remembers the Kirk Gibson homer in Game 1 of the '88 World Series that won the game, but hardly anyone remembers the Jose Canseco grand slam off the camera in center field in the 4th inning.
No, you're right.
So it kind of magnifies that, and so it wasn't picking on you, Dave. It's okay.
But just the kind of the way they say, the way you do playoffs, and I was like, the way I do playoffs.
Yes, the way you do. A lot of people do playoffs. Let's just leave it at that. God,
so what is it I do? I just kind of like.
You just okay. So you did it. The project you did was Al and I, as a matter of fact, and I think you did it. I think you've done it a couple different times. We did. What was it? The '78 Stanley Cup playoffs.
Yeah.
Okay, and so the 3 of us did that, and you replayed every game or every series. You started with every first round series, and obviously, as you go through the different rounds, not every real team makes it.
Right.
But you replicate. You went back and did that entire postseason.
Mm-hmm.
I think that is kind of probably one of the most common projects to do.
So you say you start the playoffs with the actual matchups, and
start
then
with the actual matchups and go from there, because it's going to be it tends to be a shorter project. B, everyone that is there supposedly is good.
Mm-hmm.
I know it's harder to do in basketball and hockey because not everyone that the Norris division of the 80s, for instance, kind of comes to mind in the NHL. But, it's a shorter project. If you do a 70s or 80s football season, it's 9 games.
Yeah.
So it's a manageable project. Everything has high stakes with it. It's enough to keep your interest in going there. Or for you haven't done I've done the regular season now. It's time to do the postseason, have you?
I don't think the only full season that I did, I think, was the Golden Seals in Shootout when I played all of their games.
And they wouldn't have made the playoffs anyway, right?
No, they didn't make the playoffs, but I didn't play out the playoffs. So a few people said, "Oh, you should play the playoffs out." And because I just played them. Now, I did do final score hockey from Downey games. I did do the entire 1970-71 season and the entire playoffs.
Okay.
And the Bruins walked through it like they should have in real life. Yeah. So I did that. I did do a playoff replay with final score hockey from 79-80, which the Buffalo Sabres actually won the cup in that replay.
But you only did the playoffs.
Just the playoffs, yeah. So the only one I can say that I did playoffs after a whole season.
Was that 70-71?
Was that when? Unless I sim something real quick in Action PC or Strat.
When you did Inside Blitz, did you do the playoffs for that? Because you did the 80 or 81 season.
I'm still doing that, actually.
Oh, you're still doing that? Okay.
Yeah, either that or I just did the playoffs. So, but yeah, no, I'm trying to think. I don't do the super long products like you. I'm just not at that point. I've started a few, and I haven't got very far with them.
They're easy to start.
Oh yeah, they're easy to start. Yeah, so I really haven't done the massive products like you. So I like that's why I kind of like to do my playoffs kind of by themselves. I will say, it feels a little hollow sometimes when you jump right into the playoffs, because you didn't have a hand in any of that. You didn't see that.
That was one of the points I was going to make.
Yeah, so go ahead.
So the other side of the coin is you've done your single team or quasi team or like I do, game of the week type deal, and you reach the point where you have all the stats and standings of a regular season and you form the playoffs. And so currently right now I'm doing the 85 playoffs. The first year they went to best of 7 and in Action PC, and I got 3 of the 4. I mean, we got the Cardinals and the Dodgers lined up, and the Angels won the American League West instead of the Royals, and the Blue Jays won the East by 6 games. And so we're currently doing that playoff, which always, when someone just kind of finds you on YouTube and they're looking at, well, wait a minute, that's not what happened in this. This is the real series. Well, no, this is what happened in my sim in doing that. And so this is the 4th season that I've done, the 3rd that actually everyone's had a run of playoffs because we had a tie in 49. It just kind of gives it, I think, the cherry on top of the sundae and kind of a thank you for those who watched throughout the course of the year. And, even I suppose we're going to go back to the 78 football replay when the Chiefs made the wild card game in the playoffs. They got trounced. I forgot who trounced them, but they, they're teams that I've never had a team except for Kansas City that shouldn't have been there. And it's always interesting to see something different, because sometimes that little different twist works out.
It makes it your own, doesn't it? It makes it your own.
I think so. I mean, 2 years ago, we did the 78 season, and the Rangers won the American League West as opposed to the Royals. And the Rangers, I thought were going to roll over and play dead to the 78 Yankees. And not only did they not play dead, they played Game 5 at Yankee Stadium against Ron Guidry and beat them. Bobby Bonds, a 3-run homer in the second, and Guidry was down 5-0. You're like, nope, we're done with that. So I think it just it's kind of like if you've written the novel or written the story, it needs to have that climax. And okay, you can be upset that maybe not all the teams that maybe your real team didn't make it that you rooted for, but you want to see how the story ends. I think is probably the best way to do that. And the playoffs do take on a life of their own, and it's storytelling again, because that's the biggest excitement I get from all this is the storytelling aspect. You never know how that story is going to come out. I mean, here's how we got here. Well, let's see how it finishes out. And you think certain things are going to happen. For instance, in that Cardinal-Dodger series, now I kind of have a feel of how it might end because St. Louis has a chance to wrap it up. But it really took until Game 5 for me to get a feel about how this was going to go. And my American League Championship Series, the Blue Jays stormed through the first 3 games. I have all the Blue Jays stuff ready to go on the PowerPoint if they can win this bloody thing, World Series announcements and pennants and all that. And then California said, no, and stormed back to wins Game 4 and 5 at Anaheim easily. Like, oh, okay. So, yeah. So I think, both approaches are very valid. If you want the pure playoff experience, obviously just pick it up with the first day of the playoffs. I think for hockey, for instance, to get back in your wheelhouse, there's enough, it's 8 first-round series, and they're all best of 7. And so you could either do a single team replay, like a Bruins or Canadians or whatever, or a Stanley Cup replay, and you get the Golden Corral. You have all these different bites. You got 16 teams, and then by the time that you're done with the first round, you're familiar with everybody,
Yeah.
And it makes you want to go on further.
I always wanted to play a full season of hockey, whether I just play one team or, it's tough to play every game, obviously, as you know. But what I always wanted to do is when I get into the playoffs, I wanted to go, no matter what season I was in, I wanted to go 1-16. I always liked that with hockey. I remember, I think it was in 77, maybe, the Bruins took on the LA Kings in the first round. They actually went 7 before the Bruins, 6 or 7 before the Bruins beat them. But I thought that was a phenomenal matchup because, when we get into the late 80s and 90s, it was just, and it was Kevin Dupont in the Boston Globe put it best. He says, we play 82 games for the sole purpose of eliminating the Quebec Nordiques. And so it was just
my dad's take on hockey was you play 82 games to eliminate 5 teams.
Yeah, and the idea was that when the playoffs came, it's like, okay, who's Boston playing, Hartford or Buffalo? Because Boston, Montreal were 1-2 every year, so they would never play. It was always like the division. So you play all year long, and then you'd end up playing a team that you've already played 15 or 20 times in the playoffs. Oh, yay. At least now they've tried to do something a little bit different where at least the conference plays out, not so much the division. But that was just, when they had 1-16, you would get Chicago versus the Islanders. You could get Philadelphia and Long Island in the finals. You could get Chicago, Montreal in the finals. You could get Philadelphia, Buffalo in the finals. When they split it to the conferences, I remember how many years that Colorado Avalanche and Detroit Red Wings would have an unbelievable Western Conference Finals, and then the Stanley Cup kind of sucked.
Was anticlimactic for sure.
So it's like, imagine if that was your finals. Imagine if your finals was Colorado and Detroit back in the heyday, with Wah and Yzerman and all those guys. So for me, getting back to my point, I always wanted to play out a season, whether I sim it on the computer or whatever I do, and then make it my playoffs. I'm going 1-16. And that's how I'm going to seed them, and that's how I'm going to play my playoffs. And I thought I would have an absolute blast doing it that way. In fact, I think I might do that with the Stone Cold Hockey. I might try that. Take my 3 seasons that I have, the 74, the 83, and the 90, and do a 1-16. Go to the final standings, go 1-16, and play out my playoffs and see my results. And, I think it'd be fun to see who ends up not only who wins it, but who ends up in the Stanley Cup Finals, because it could be any of the 16 teams matching up. You could get 2 teams from one division going. You could get your Boston, Montreal in the finals, which you can't do that anymore. How cool would that be some years? How cool, see Boston, Montreal back in the finals. You can't do that in today's NHL. So for me, with playoffs, it gives me the chance to really play around and seed some teams different, do a different one. Like I say, the 1-16, do I want to go by conference? So again, it's your world, your rules, your way. But there's different ways you can handle the playoffs. And so that makes it fun too, is kind of doing your own thing.
The other thing, especially with baseball, I'm not sure what the case is with the other 3, is that playoff baseball is a different animal than regular season baseball. You have to handle your pitchers so differently. On an average August night, you might let your third starter struggle. Okay, no, the bullpen got eaten last night. You got to give me 100 pitches. I know you're down 6-0 in the 4th, but I need you to pitch till 6. We've got the Mets coming into town over the weekend, and we need to rest up for that. While in the playoffs, one of the things that plagues the real life ones is you can get on a manager for being too quick with the hook, or you can get on a manager being too long with the hook, or not using a pitcher in this situation. It is so different, and the managers can box yourself in the corner. When the Cubs finally won the World Series in 2016, they almost outsmarted themselves and lost. Not that Cleveland wouldn't deserve to have won the World Series, but just because the stakes are higher and managerial decisions are so important. So when you play a playoff, you're always second-guessing yourself when you make a decision, whether it's putting this person out in the field or that person out on the mound or whatever, because a mistake gets, as you said, they get magnified and at least on the tabletop, or on most computer games, momentum isn't a thing. The computer doesn't care who won the night before. computer will keep track of who's fresh for you so you can
Right,
use.
yeah.
But if you lost in the most horrific way ever, either a 16-0 blowout or a walk-off grand slam, the computer doesn't care. It's game 5 the next
Yeah.
day, and everyone's fresh. I don't know, because baseball is my sport, how much of a difference that makes for football. I mean, at some point, I guess you kind of have to gamble, because football is a one-and-out type deal. But I would think, especially because you know hockey better than I do, that the game plans would roughly be the same. You might juggle around a line or two if you're down in a series, but a regular season hockey and playoff hockey outside of the endless overtime, to me, seems similar.
Yeah, they do. Well, what's fun about when you do the playoffs is, as I talked about changing up the format of the playoffs, is what do you do with your personnel? Do you do an as played? Do you get as close as played? If you got a guy that was hurt and didn't quarterback, you take the Buffalo Bills. Do you put in Frank Reich, or do you keep, was it Jim Kelly? Was he the guy that got hurt?
Yeah, I actually had to make that decision once.
So I mean that's another thing to consider too. It's like, do you go the as played? Do you put in the as played quarterback? Do you put in the as played goalie or pitcher, or do you just go in there and say, okay, I'm starting the playoffs and I'm going to do it my way here, and nobody was hurt this year, and so we talk about season replays and even the one offs, and you're trying to play as played versus as carded, or your own way. It's just, so there's all these decisions that come into play, and I think it would be really fun to take the Buffalo Bills and put Jim Kelly on the team and see if he could win any of those Super Bowls. Like was it, did Frank Reich play the Super Bowl, or was that Kelly playing all 4?
Kelly lost all 4.
Kelly lost. Okay, what was the one that Frank Reich, was that the Houston game?
That was the wild card game, and I think I replayed that and looked into if Kelly could have played it, and Kelly got hurt in the game. So Reich and Kelly went back and forth.
Okay. But it'd be fun.
But Kelly played the rest of them.
Yeah, but kind of what I'm getting at here is to take a team that maybe had a quarterback that was hurt or a running back that was hurt and didn't play in the playoffs, and play those people in the playoffs, Or maybe, there was a couple times that, Tony Eason played the playoffs for the New England Patriots. I'm going Grogan. I'm going to take Grogan and put Grogan in there instead of Eason.
Yeah, because you can do a what if with that. You could do we could do the Al Red Sox World Series in '67 and put Tony Cogligliero in right field instead of whoever they used in that '67. So would it make? I mean, I'm kind of doing that now in my '85 playoffs, because Vince Coleman was run over by the automatic tarp machine in St. Louis before Game 3. Now, Coleman's had a terrible series. Anyway, but so Coleman missed the rest of that in the World Series. Now, the Cardinals lost in 7 in the World Series, but is it going to make a difference to have all that speed to start the game for St. Louis, especially if they do get past L.A. to go to the World Series? So far, Coleman has been cold, but all it takes is one game. And so, so absolutely, what would be the case with favorite injured player? Do the Celtics win the NBA Finals against the Lakers in '87 if Walton is healthy for the entire season?
Right.
Or whatever it is. You could do 75, 76 with the Bruins if they don't trade Orr.
Right. Yeah.
Or doesn't lose his, all sorts of different things.
Or Dryden doesn't play at the end of the 70-71 season. They just.
Or another thing that I've seen people do is, okay, maybe you swap a card for that. So maybe you do 75-76 with Orr from 70-71.
I see. Yeah.
And so I've seen people do that before. Okay, so we're going to have, not only we're going to have a healthy player, but we're going to go to their best card.
Right.
To see what they can do. Can that tip the balance?
Well, now that leads us to actually a whole nother discussion is, the people who take the best of teams and have a round robin playoffs with them. So you're not actually having a playoffs in any particular year, but you're taking the greatest of.
Right.
Yeah, you're taking the greatest of. Because I'm going to take a team from this year and that year and the other year. Maybe they're all Super Bowl teams. You take all the Super Bowl teams and you put them in a pile and you have them play each other. And I think they were doing that with the Pro Strategy Football. They they had 100-team thing going, or a whole bunch of Super Bowl teams or whatever it was, and then to see who the winner is. And I think somebody was doing that in a hockey game too. They took all like the Stanley Cup champions and put them in a pile, and they decided to play them out. So I mean,
there's a long thread over at StratFan Forum with someone who's done that, and he's done it for 15, 20 years. It was a franchise thing, so it was the last, the current Cup winner against the last different franchise one. He started it in the 80s, but because the Canadians, the Islanders, and the Oilers won for so much, you were getting, I think the 72 Bruins played forever in that thing, and so you get the 72 Bruins and the 82 Islanders, and I mean, is it strictly, well, this would never happen type deal? I mean, everything you got to take with a bit of a grain of salt anyway, but what a creative way to do that.
Technically, that is playoffs, right? If you take the greatest teams or whatever it is.
If you are doing it in anything in an elimination format, is a playoff.
Yep. And it is. And so there's another way to do playoffs as well. So, I mean, playoffs are they're so fun because you can do all these different things in them, like we talked about, as played, not as played, do we have injuries? We're going to have the guy that was on the team, he never got injured, he's going to play. I know Al was doing, Al Red Sox fan was doing the Namath thing, and I think he played Namath the entire season rather than taking him out hurt. So, I think his team got all the way to was it the Super Bowl and they lost the Super Bowl?
I think he got the Rams to the Super Bowl.
And they lost it. Yeah, they lost it in the Super Bowl.
Which would have immediately made him mayor of Los Angeles, because that was every Christmas through the 70s, the Ram fans were disappointed because they usually lost around there.
Yeah. But, so, I mean, there's another case where he took a guy that was injured and played them in the whole bit. So, the possibilities are endless when it comes to playoffs. And that's what really makes it fun, is that you make it yours. You make it your own, And, whether you just do the greatest teams or you take a season and you go to the playoffs, maybe you play the whole season, maybe just play the playoffs, maybe you do an as-played, maybe you don't, maybe you do a what-if type of playoffs. Like I said, myself, I'm dying to play some 1-16, in the NHL and the whole bit. Football is probably the easiest because there's a lot fewer playoff games. It's a one and done.
A lot fewer playoff games, and I mean, you could view what RJL's doing with all of his seasons and had the full expanded playoffs and not the real life playoffs in any given season that he did, or you take a current season and maybe just go with the one wild card game per conference instead of, was it 3 now? Yeah, I think it's now 3.
Yeah.
Or you just pick the best team not to win the division, or just all division winners, because there's 4 divisions now, and start the playoffs when you want. So maybe you do last year's NFL playoffs, but instead of doing the 6 wild card games, you just start with the 4 divisional games. You just take the 4 divisional winners, seed them 1 through 4, and go with that. It could be whatever your heart desires for that. Again, I'm a big fan of, if you've done the project, if you've done the long-term project, you want to do the playoffs. Now, the first time I did 75-76 Islanders with Action PC, I did the playoffs because not only the Islanders made it, but they made the Cup final. And so in order to be fair, because it's all jumbled up anyway, you played the rest of the playoffs. And that kind of added to it because, again, once you get away from the regular season, the stakes are higher. The first round is Islanders didn't win the division, so you had to win the best of 3 in order to win the best, to go to I think it was best, whatever it was, and end up in the Stanley Cup Finals, which is what the Islanders did. And they played Montreal, which if you do a 75-76 replay that Montreal or Philadelphia doesn't win, I'd like to know what you were playing. And they took game 1 up at the Forum.
Nice.
I was completely happy with the result because it was my 2 teams. But okay, they didn't get swept by Montreal, and then Montreal took the next 4. But because that, or if I ever do get back to the Red Sox project doing the strat, I don't know if I would do a playoff on that. My focus with that is the Red Sox. But if the Red Sox do get in the LCS, obviously I'm doing the LCS, and then I have to quick send the World Series from the National League to see who they'd play, or else I could just play the Dodgers. I mean, there is, as we talk about a lot, no wrong way to do that, but there's just so many different ways to get there. And again, if you're doing a long-term project, you've gotten this far anyway. One of the more enjoyable projects that I read was Ogard, APA Football. No, it was Zarb, Mark Zarb's 91 NFL replay. And now real life Redskins won his Super Bowl, but they went undefeated. They ran the table. They went 18-0, 19-0, 19 games, division, conference, and Super Bowl. And their defense would have been right with the 72 Dolphins, 85 Bears, and the 2000 Ravens.
Wow.
I mean, they were averaging around 10 points a game. And so, yeah, it builds up to it, and it takes up, again, a life of its own. It's kind of like when you make the graham cracker crust pie, chocolate cream or banana cream or whatever, pineapple cream, if you like that sort of thing. And the base is the graham cracker crust, and it tastes really good. And whatever you put in for the filling is there, but it's the Cool Whip or the fresh whipped cream or whatever, or whatever that really makes it, the drizzle on a chocolate mousse pie to make it all kind of come together. And that's kind of what that is for me. You've done all the hard work. Let it pay out. Let it pay off.
I played a season. I don't know what it was in a particular project, and I think I don't know if I was just kind of playing it out or if I played one team. I don't remember. And people say, "Oh, you got to play the playoffs." And I was like, well, no, I just wanted to play the regular season to see how things worked out. I wanted to see what my results were compared to real life and the whole bit. I said I really didn't have any intentions of playing playoffs at all. But a couple of people asked me to play it out. I don't think I ever did. I can't even remember the project, what it was now. But it's like, I suppose I should probably do it just to finish it out. But I think what the product was designed to do, it did. And I was satisfied with doing that, and I just didn't need to take it any further.
I think most people do primarily a playoff, short-term project.
Because it's a shorter season is basically what it is.
It could be whatever, even if it's just a finals.
And the easiest thing about what I like about that is when you do playoffs, with cards and dice, usually the teams are going to be all set for playoffs, because don't you usually get the end of the season teams when they're carded?
Yes.
So you're not like when I go back and I play, early season, whatever it is, I'm flipping through all the other teams to try to find the guys that were traded to put them on to make an as played. And as fun as it is to do an as played, it is kind of a pain in the neck searching around for guys that are on different teams. Whether it's APA baseball, APA hockey, or Strat or whatever. It's, you're searching around and trying to find a guy. When you do the playoffs, it's like those guys are there. They're already in the card deck, unless there's an obscure guy that played one game and maybe he wasn't carded or whatever. But I mean, your guys are there. You don't really have to go hunt for your playoff guy. So it is a little bit easier that way too. Yeah.
And again, when you are focusing that little extra bit on the playoff, the great things will pop out in games. Again, you're just doing random week 4 NFL. Okay, if someone throws for 500, you're probably going to pay attention to that. But if Tom Brady's thrown for 400 and Dan Fouts throws for 400, okay, yeah, well, they're supposed to do that. That's not going to mean anything to you. But if you got Brady throwing for 425 and brings it down the field in the last 2 minutes to win a ball game to get you into the next round, yeah, you're going to remember that.
Yeah,
and it kind of builds excitement and makes you want to play the game more. And I think we've talked about, recently a couple times, is that, once you get over how the game engine works, regardless of what that game is, once it starts to become the sport as opposed to the game, it just gets better for you and easier for you. And the playoffs is a great way to do that, because you're just going to be, okay, got to make sure I'm doing this right. And wow, what a result.
Yes, it is.
I did a college World Series type tournament years ago with the 1978, so top 8 records in baseball, using a game called Strategic Baseball Simulator, a freebie at every season at the time for it. It's certainly not as played or anything like that. So I'm doing first round game between the Yankees and the Phillies, and I'm going with Catfish Hunter. May have been the second game or whatever. And Hunter threw a no-hitter. I've only had 2 ever on the tabletop. Mm-hmm. But that stuck out more because it was a playoff, tournament game. He's thrown a no-hitter. And Hunter was not great in 78. That was a long shot no-hitter. But he threw a no-hitter. I'm like, wow. And of course, that was my first ever one playing. The computer can sim them, but like, okay, that's nice.
Yeah.
But to actually play one, like, wow.
Yeah. I think I did a full season replay. Now, I don't know if I played every game. I probably skipped ahead a little bit, but in Franchise Hockey Manager, probably one of the older ones, probably like 3 or 6 or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I did WHA, and I was the New England Whalers. And what I ended up doing is I went into the free agents, and I found some guys that I knew were very good hockey players. No superstars, but very good hockey players. I think Cuniff was one of the ones I picked up. He ended up with the Bruins organization. And there was a few guys that I picked up that I knew were decent players. So, again, because hindsight's 20/20, that they were free agents and the computer didn't know they were going to be good, but I did. So I added 3 or 4 guys to my New England Whalers team, and we ended up going all the way, and I think I won the whole thing.
Did you win the Avco Cup?
We won the Avco Cup. That's the only time I've taken a team and done that. I remember that I had a lot of injuries, and I don't remember. There was one series I played. I got pretty far, but all my guys were hurt. And I was like, every game, a top guy went down. So I was missing my top 4 guys. And I don't remember if I reset injuries and continued the playoffs or if I played it out and lost. I don't remember because back then I was playing a lot of Franchise Hockey Manager. But I did those one season. I got to the finals and won it. And again, through no help of me, aside from adding some guys, I just let the computer handle everything because I still don't know what I'm doing in that game. But I had so much fun just like setting my lineup and putting in the goalies, and we ended up winning the Avco Cup, and I was pretty excited about that. That was a WHA season that I won. But that's one that I did play the entire season. Not every game, but I would sim a few and play one, sim a few, play one, and then we got into the playoffs and I won it all. So that was one that I actually did complete, along with the final score hockey. So that I did do.
Yeah. But, so again, just. And again, playoffs are what you are going to remember the most anyway. Mm-hmm. Unless you were a committed fan of a certain team of a certain year. Then you're going to remember the night that Roger Clemens blew an 11-run lead at Yankee Stadium. Yeah, I remember that one quite well. And again, shorter project, gets you familiar with the game.
And you come out with a champion, too. When you play regular season, you don't have a champion. I guess you have
Not necessarily.
You kind of do, but I mean, when you have the playoffs and everyone's going head-to-head, now you get your outcome.
And if you're doing a single team replay and your team finishes 3rd or 4th, it's like, yeah, okay, next.
Yeah.
As opposed to, wow. And you never know how you're going to get there and what kind of crazy, topsy-turvy things happen.
Yeah.
And you think you got to figure it out, and then you don't. So, So let us know how you do playoffs. Do you do the full single season, full replay route of some sort, and then do that? Because I know that some people who do play out every single game, and of course you play at the playoffs just to do that, or do you do? I'm doing a Bills replay. Do you only do your own team in the playoff, or do you replay the rest of the playoffs, or do you just go through and say I'm doing a tournament? I'm going to take these 8 teams. We're going to do a playoff with that. Do you create, like what Dave was talking about? You could do that in the NBA as well, to top 16 teams there and go 1 to 16, create your own things. You do what RJL does, an inside pitch and add rounds to playoffs, subtract rounds. How do you guys out there do your playoffs and tournaments? We want to hear from you.
Yep, let us know. All right, now before we wrap things up, we do got to get to our 3 stars of the week.
Yep.
So this is episode 152. And our 3rd star is Ledman Smith.
Woohoo!
Thank you so much for being one of our Patreon supporters, Ledman. Thank you so much. Number 2 star is Craig Harris.
Yay!
Way to go, Craig. Again, thank you so much for supporting the show. And number 1 star, actually a brand new Patreon here on the channel, JT Dutch.
Yes, sir.
Thank you so much. And again, that was in no particular order, our 3 stars of the night. But thank you so much for supporting the show. And what do you say we wrap things up?
Absolutely.
Yeah, by the numbers, episode 152 of the Digital to Dice podcast. Ways to get a hold of us, digitaltodice.com is our website. 978-751-DICE is the text line. DigitalToDice at yahoo.com is a way to email us. And over on Facebook, facebook.com/groups/DigitalToDice. Fun little playoff discussion here, Ron.
Yeah.
I'm interested to see some of the comments on this as we got a lot of good comments on accuracy in the last show, too. So that was a lively discussion. So we kind of hope we'll get a nice lively discussion going on playoffs. So I'm Dave.
I'm Ron.
We'll talk to everybody later.
Bye-bye.